the scientist.
Suffice it that the blood of 1,000 men and women was spilled in these walls. Limbs twisted and broken, eyes gouged from bloody sockets, flesh burned black.
Please. Await the dead. In death, there are no accidents, no coincidences, no mishaps, and no escapes. What you have to realize is that we're all just a mouse that a cat has by the tail.
Every Halloween at midnight, the devil simultaneously appears in two places: the high plains of India and a quiet cemetery in Kansas. It's November 2nd, the Day of the Dead. Two federal marshals report to the small town of Shinbone, Kansas, moments after a tornado warning, to transport a prisoner with no past, no identity. He is known only as Sin Jin Smith. Starring Roddy Piper, Richard Tyson, Jonathan Davis, Kevin Gage, Gary Casper, John Philbin, Billy Duffy, Charles Cyphers, and Eileen Dietz. Check out the movie that critics are calling one of 2007's most anticipated horror films by visiting www.sinjinsmith.com. That's www.sin-jinsmyth.com. St. Jin Smith is a Snapkick Productions film, written and directed by Ethan Detmeyer. Coming soon to a theater near you.
Hello, wonderful fellow listeners. I sound like crap tonight because I have laryngitis or something.
Laryngitis. Welcome to World of the Unexplained. I'm Trent Lackey.
This is Jay Scott.
I don't have laryngitis.
Try and get the music going on.
Okay, Chuck got the music going on. Tonight we have with us Brent Miller, and if you don't know who this guy is, you're going to soon because he has got some amazing stuff to tell us about tonight. Brent Miller is part of what is called the Horizon Project, and we're going to give you that website later. It involves remote viewing with Major Ed Danes. It involves a lot of planetary Earth changes that he's going to talk about. Brent has been in the business world for a long period of time. He used to be an expert in, or I guess you're still an expert, you're always an expert, in e-commerce systems by IBM, and he's done a lot of other system business methodology. He's personally amassed over 30 U.S. patents for advancement in human interface systems and business methodology, recognition software, artificial intelligence, applications, data transmission protocols, analysis, and all kinds of other things that I don't know what they are. But obviously they sound really
cool.
Yeah. And gosh, I'm really flubbing it tonight, aren't I?
It's all good.
That's all right, man.
Anyway, I'm going to let him tell you more about himself. We're going to bring him on now.
Okay, it's a pleasure to be with you, Jay and Trent. It's an honor.
Thank you, Brent, for coming on the show.
Likewise.
Scott?
Tell us about your background, Brent. I know I flubbed it, so.
Well, in a nutshell, my background is quite technical. Graduated from University of Illinois, electrical engineering. Went on to do some postgraduate work, and I was hired by, various companies in power systems, futures trading, military projects with, some classified projects, nuclear subs, F-16 fighter intelligence, protocols being put into the onboard computer systems, worked for computer companies, created my own company, went to New York, was the head of a few Fortune 500 companies, CCG-XM and Gray Direct as the Chief Operations Officer, Chief Technical Officer for the corporation. My background tends to make me very, very analytical, and I am not prone to flights of fancy. So when I research something, it's done very, very methodically and very intensely. And the purpose of the Horizon Project came about with the intense investigation of certain scientific information and scientific evidence that was brought to my attention and my company's attention. I being, the head of the company, I was free to discretionary spend money where I wanted to. So I wanted to investigate things that had nothing to do with the company, and hence, as a result of the information we found, and in flying around the country and talking to experts in quite a number of fields, we realized that there is something very, very serious about to happen to planet Earth. And that was the genesis and the starting of the Horizon Project. A few years ago, about 10 years ago, I was also trained by Major Ed Dames in remote viewing. Remote viewing is a protocol by which information from the unconscious awareness can be brought to conscious awareness. As humans, we are more than the sum of our parts. We live in this sea of information. The ancient Chinese referred to it as the Akashic records. Remote viewing is a method by which we pull that data out, and we can basically get any information out about past, present, or future. We use that also as a tool to validate the information and to know where to gather more information in the real world.
Now Major Ed Dames, was he trained as part of the government testing of this remote viewing?
Major Ed Dames is the most highly decorated, and I do not say this tongue-in-cheek, I say this quite literally, he is the most highly decorated military intelligence officer in the recent history of this country. He has 2 meritorious service medals, and he has a Legion of Merit. He has changed the way foreign policy has been directed by the White House and the Cabinet for the last 15 years. In fact, his Meritorious Service Medal achievements written up by the White House are clearly visible and online for people to read.
Wow.
And he was the one and only training and operations officer for the military Spy unit, which dumped millions of dollars in to studying psychic awareness to see if it was something that people could be taught.
Now, this is going back to where we hear about all these experiments where they would put people in a room and try to look at at Russia's bomb sites and things like that.
Their missile
exactly. That was the genesis of it. That was in the early 60s, and the intent of remote viewing. This is a digression off the Horizon Project, but I feel it's an important digression. The genesis of remote viewing was to intensely study psychics. And in studying psychics, the intent is to try to figure out how they do what they're doing when they're on target. On target meaning, of course, they're correct. But psychics are only correct maybe 2% of the time, which means 98% of the time, the vast majority, they're off in Never Never Land. But they don't know the difference. They will say with such incredible conviction they're dead on target, 100 out of 100 times, when only 2 times out of 100 they're dead on. But it's those 2 times out of 100 that make all the rest of us, quote, normal people perk up our ears and take notice, because how in the world could they have known such incredible detail about something that nobody could know about, yet they nailed it. But so the FBI and other military branches funneled money to support psychic investigation at Stanford Research Institute in California to try to figure out how psychics do what they do when they're on. When they're off, they throw out all the information. It took decades for them to figure it out, and in the late 70s, they had a very, very incredibly gifted psychic, Ingle Swan, who is on target a lot. And over a period of about 10 years, they figured out the process, mainly with his effort, to figure out exactly how psychics do what they do mentally when they're on. And that's all well and good, but what they really discovered was that if a normal person like you or I'm as psychic as a rock, if a normal person follows the same protocol in their head and follows the protocol that we now call remote viewing for a given task, we do exactly what the psychic does when they're on target. So a psychic's only on target 2% of the time. A remote viewer is on 100% of the time.
Now, what do you attribute this ability to train people to do this? Do you attribute it to ability that we all have, maybe recessed in that 90% of the brain that we don't use?
I know for a fact that it's innate. Everybody can do it. I have a daughter who's 10 years old when she was trained. And within a matter of 2 days, she could nail every single target. Say, what is in this envelope? She says, well, basically it's an elephant, and it's looking this way, and it's tromping around looking for food, and there's a person to its left and a tree to its right. Sure enough, open up the elephant, that's exactly what it is. And you can be right 100% of the time. And this is an innate ability. It's like opening your eyes and seeing for the first time. Everybody can do it, but nobody knows to open their eyes. And it is a skill that can be taught, and everybody can learn this. I mean, we teach this. In fact, we just had a class in Las Vegas of 70 people, and they all walked away learning the protocol, because once you learn the protocol, it's just a matter of following the directions. And everybody can be on target for every question they have.
Wow.
And how we can do this, every person who has learned remote viewing, and I say this very sincerely, everybody is a skeptic. They have to be.
Oh, yeah.
Because it doesn't make any sense. But every single person who learns remote viewing, their life is changed forever, because they now know, even if they never do remote viewing again, they now know that for a fact, faith is no longer a part of the equation. They have proof. They now know that they can know anything just by using the protocol. And we actually live in a sea of information that spans the past, present, and yes, the future. And it is just as easy to look at events in the future as it is to events in the past. The source of the data doesn't differentiate the two.
So how far in the future can you go? How far in the past can you go? What are these?
Unlimited. There's no such thing as too far or too close. I could say tomorrow, for instance, almost a training target that if you're learning to remote view, one of the training targets you do is next day's New York Times front page primary photo. That's just less than 24 hours in the future whenever you do that. And you always draw the primary photo of the New York Times next day's newspaper. And so you're teaching yourself to get better and better, and you learn to nail it every time. You could easily say, 18 months, 3 hours, and 16 minutes from now, the picture that will be on CNN. And sure enough, wait a year and a half and turn it on at that moment, and that's the picture you'll see. Or the next time I walk into this particular building, I will see what? And guess what? You've never been in that building in your life. But sure enough, when you draw it, there's a kid on the ground on the left, there's a bubblegum machine on the right, and there's a security guard, fiddling with a book in his hand. And that you draw all that, and you just decide at random when you want to go in there. 6 months from now, when you walk in, and you have that picture in front of you, and sure enough, it matches exactly what you see at that moment.
No, I have to be a little skeptical. Let me.
You have to be skeptical.
I was just going to say, I've seen the DVD that you offer on winning the lottery with remote viewing, and that's why I'm come on. You have people that have actually they claim on your website to be able to win the lottery with this thing.
They win the lottery all the time with it. I won the daily California 3 lottery 8 times.
You yourself?
I myself, and that's 8 sequential times, and that's not just random numbers. That's 3 digits in a row, each digit in sequence. So it's 500 to 1 odds.
Well, I mean, I always come up with this question when we talk about the future, and I guess the primary gist of it is, with this remote viewing, you see something that happens 6 months in the future. Well, what's to say that because you now know that this is how it's going to be, that inadvertently you're going to, in one respect, steer things towards achieving that result, or you know it's something bad, so you try to steer things away from achieving that result. And I guess really my point is that the future doesn't seem to be as fixed, because there's a lot of human element and a lot of just chaotic things that come in. It's really complicated, but
that's actually a very good question. What we do know from remote viewing is that if you cue a question for past, present, future, it doesn't matter what it is. Remember, the source of the information is outside of time. To it, everything is history. It already happened. So tomorrow's lottery number, even though it's our future, it's the sources of information's past. So it's fixed. It's already happened. So that whatever you ask, if you get the answer, and you do get the answer 99.999% of the time, it is written in stone. There is nothing you can do about it. It has happened to the source.
Are you saying?
I know what you're saying. For instance, you could say, well, you could try to make it happen or not try to make it happen and try to manipulate it. But if you were going to be successful in manipulating it so it doesn't happen, you don't actually get the information. You've created your own paradox. For instance, if I say, what am I going to have for lunch tomorrow, I absolutely would not even get the answer. Because I would intentionally not have that thing. So I don't even get an answer. But if I were to give the question to another remote viewer who says, what's Brent going to have for lunch tomorrow, and he doesn't tell me, that is exactly what I will be having. Let me give you an example that has nothing to do with remote viewing, but it is very similar. It's the source of information. Nostradamus, about 350 years ago, or some time frame around there, he said that he got his information from the same source. The ancient Chinese call it the Akashic Records. He called it the Akashic Records, so did Edgar Cayce. We call it the Matrix. It's the same source. And a rich man in France was holding a party as the guest of honor, Nostradamus, and asked him to come in and say, here's a white pig and here's a black pig. We're going to have a feast for our guests. Which pig are we going to eat? And this is a famous example. And Nostradamus says, well, we're going to eat the black pig. And so the rich man excuses himself, goes into the kitchen with the black pig, sets it free, and has the white pig slaughtered there in front of him, cut up, thrown in the oven, and the chefs are busy cooking the white pig. But the information, if you get the information, it's already happened. So that night at dinner, of course, the rich man wants to make a fool out of Nostradamus. Why? I don't know. This is why it was, it's well documented. He again reiterates Nostradamus in front of everybody. Which pig are we eating? He says, well, we're eating the black pig, of course. Calls in the chef, says, please explain to everybody which pig we're eating. We had a white pig and a black pig. He says, well, we're eating we're eating the black pig. He says, because right after you left, we were basting the pig, and it fell on the floor, and it got all dirty. And we just barely had enough time to rush out, find that black pig, bring him back, slaughter him, and cook it all for everybody to eat. We barely had enough time. So that's just an example of when people see something that is information for the future, and we're not talking the psychics who are right 2% of the time, and imagination kicks in 98%. But actual real data. And part of the data for remote viewing, you can look at the future as well as the past. But the majority of the Horizon Project is truly based on scientific evidence and not remote viewing. And this is why the combination of remote viewing and the scientific evidence about what's going to happen in our immediate future within the next 6 years is really compelling.
So just to clarify a little bit, you're saying that the information that you discover in the future is going to be set in stone because it is outside of time? In other words, that the past, the future, and the present are happening simultaneously, something like that? Is that what you're getting at?
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying the source of information is outside of time.
Mm-hmm.
So you're not subscribing to like a string theory of relative universes or anything like that?
No, I'm not.
Okay.
The source of the information to it, everything has already happened. So that when I say it, we're moving linearly through time. So tomorrow, for example, if you think about tomorrow as something that didn't happen, it's not in our conscious awareness because to us it hasn't yet. We're not there. But if I asked you, what did you have for lunch yesterday? You could clearly tell me if you remembered. Mm-hmm. You could tell me what you had because it already happened. It was a fact. It already happened.
Hang on, our producer's got a question for you.
So is predestination a component in this too then, if your assumption is that time's linear?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the question.
Is predestination a component in this, if your assumption is that time's linear?
We are moving through sequential time. We, as physical human beings in this galaxy, are moving through sequential time. But the source of the information, i.e. the fourth dimension, is outside of time. We have height, width, length, the first three dimensions. The fourth dimension is time. If the source of information is outside of time, that means all time, past, present, and future, are all a single point as far as it's concerned. It's all past. That's why we can win the lottery numbers so easily, and we can get the numbers with, absolute precision. And it's no different than saying, what are the lottery numbers tomorrow night's draw versus what are the lottery numbers for yesterday's draw. To the source of the information, it's history. All of it happened yesterday. But to get to your point about predestination, it doesn't mean we don't have free will. There's not a paradox here. We have free will to say and do anything we want, just like you had free will yesterday to have anything you wanted for lunch, except today it's now a known fact what your decision was.
No, let me ask you a question. Yeah. If someone were to purchase this DVD on winning the lottery from your site, can you give that website for us real quick, Brent?
LearnRV.com is how to learn remote viewing. The application of using queuing as a remote viewing application to win the lottery is an application. You have to learn how to remote view first.
Okay, that's what I was going to ask. So they would have to go through the rest of the program before they would be able to apply this secondary source.
Right. Remote viewing is a requirement because it's the protocol by which you gather the information.
Okay, that makes sense.
Once you have the protocol down, then you just need the cues and the method they use.
Okay.
Otherwise, it won't make any sense if you just listen to it directly.
Now, we're coming up on a break real quick, but let me remind everyone that our chat room, for some reason, is down tonight. But please call in with your questions to Brent Miller. The number here is 877-722-7382 or 877-SCARE-YOU2 or locally 336-996-1596. And those numbers are all accessible on the front page of our site, worldoftheunexplained.com, if you're near your computer. Going back, though, Brent, what is this? Actually, we've got about 2 minutes before the break, but let me ask you, what is this, if you can explain it that quickly, what is this thing that knows all? What is the source of this information?
Honestly, we don't know. Every single remote viewer asks the same question over and over again. In fact, they cue the source saying, where is your origin? What is your source? What is the purpose? What is your function? As if everything has a purpose or function. Some things don't. And the best we can come up with is angelic guidance. Quite honestly and literally, angelic guidance. I say that very upfront and direct.
Like God?
About the bush, because it not only gives direct answers to direct questions, but you can ask it questions that would be dynamic in nature. And I can go into things about that later, but questions such as, where would be the absolute most optimum job for me? See, you're no longer talking to something that's static, like what are the lottery digits for the next night's drawing. It has to project all the timelines between you and 6.5 billion people and all the interactions into the future and show the perfect optimized track for you. And then it feeds back that answer to you. So we know what it is not. We know it's not human consciousness. We know it's not a global consciousness. We do know it's interactive, it's benevolent, and it always has your best interest in mind. But what exactly is the source? We're not sure. We just know it's, quote, loving, benevolent, and always precise.
All right, and with that, we're going to take a short break. We'll be right back on World of the Unexplained with Mr. Brent Miller.
Remember when paranormal radio used to be open to New Age ideas and every possible form of spiritual enlightenment?
It's a religion based on the understanding of consciousness, the understanding of nature, in particular fertility laws.
To my spirit guides are those who have passed over. And, I've always been able to see colors around people, which I've known now to be called auras.
Maybe coming to the close of one kind of psychic life, and I very much believe that this was what the Maya were really trying to talk about.
Well, we're not putting up with that. World of the Unexplained. Conservative paranormal talk. Big on God. Big on guns. With your hosts Jay Scott and Trent Lackey. Heard Mondays live from 8 to 10 Eastern on Planet Paranormal Radio.
Roswell, UFOs, flying saucers, alien abduction, Are we alone? Information regarding this and many other questions about the unknown are only a click away at www.theufostore.com. The UFOstore.com offers hundreds of DVDs about UFOs, aliens, crop circles, conspiracies, Bigfoot, suppressed science, ancient mysteries, and the latest DVD releases like Dan Aykroyd Unplugged on UFOs and the Alien Files 5 DVD set. The UFOstore.com also offers the book Roswell, It Really Happened by Jesse Marcel, one of the last survivors of the Roswell UFO crash that examined the spacecraft wreckage in 1947, revealing its hidden secrets. Log on to www.theufostore.com and request a free UFO Store catalog. To receive a free catalog by mail, call 541-523-2630. That's 541-523-2630. TheUFOstore.com, the largest selection of UFO products on the internet.
And we're back to World Unexplained. Brent Miller. You still there, Brent?
Yes, it's a pleasure to be back.
Excellent.
Give them the numbers.
Yeah, once again, our chat room's down tonight, guys. Sorry.
You can email us, though.
You can totally email us at worldunexplained@gmail.com. Or if you want to call in, 1-877-722-7382. And if you don't like numbers too much, that's 1-877-SCARE-YOU-TOO. The local number is 336-996-1596. So, Scott, you were...
Oh, yeah, I was just going to ask you what these predictions have led. Now, I know you said scientifically there's a lot of scientists that back you up, and we've had Michael Zarian on the show before, and Michael Zarian appears in the Horizon Project, Episode 1. I did notice that you're currently in production on another episode right now. I read something about going to the North Pole. Can you clarify that for us a little bit?
Well, the North Pole actually doesn't have anything to do, per se, with the Horizon Project. It's to verify some scientific measurements that need to be taken to confirm the rate at which the pole shifts and the upcoming shifts. It does look like there's some interaction happening not only with the Earth itself, but with every planet in our solar system right now, as the Earth and the solar system is approaching what I'm going to refer to right now as the Galactic Plain. And we'll get into that later, because that is one of the key parts of the Horizon Project. But it is a scientific expedition, and yes, we did have Michael as one of the guests, and we did interview probably 50, 60 different guests around the country, most of them scientists, researchers. Michael is we considered him an expert in ancient civilizations in terms of general knowledge of cultures and the rise and fall of civilizations and ancient technologies.
And he is that.
Very, very little scientific information that he's directly responsible for, but he's accumulated an awfully lot, when that led us into a whole bunch of different directions for other people we needed to interview, most of them being Nobel laureates and doctors and people in basically every field. And the Horizon Project did not start as a result of remote viewing. We use that as a tool. But the Horizon Project, if I can give a quick introduction.
Sure, go for it.
We feel very strongly, in fact, it's beyond feeling at this point. It's, as far as we're concerned, and some of the most prestigious scientists on this planet know that within the next few years, the Earth and the solar system are moving toward the Galactic Plain. The Galactic Plain, if you think of the if you think of our galaxy as the Milky Way, the pictures you see that are collected by the Hubble telescope, it has a central axis, and all the stars move around it in a disk, and it has spiraling arms of stars around it. Well, that disk, think of it as a big record. That disk, down the very center of the disk, the flat disk that spins, is a very intense gravitational plane that all the stars, as they're rotating around the galactic center over millions of years, they're wobbling very, very slightly above and below that galactic plane, constantly above and below. But every time they cross the galactic plane, the gravitational field of that galactic plane causes all the planets and stars to wobble very, very slightly. But that very slight wobble to human life on any planet that might be going up and down that galactic plane is devastating. This is what the Mayans discovered at 1000 BC. In fact, the ancient Mayan calendar, which started August 11th, 3114 BC and ends December 24th, 2012 BC, using our Gregorian calendar, extremely accurately reflects. There's not a scientist who's done the research that doesn't state that this accurately reflects the exact crossing of our solar system above and below the galactic plane. And every time that happens, the most well-known quantum physicists and astrophysicists today say that the Earth will undergo another pole shift. And this will be happening within 6 years. It could happen within plus or minus of that 2012 date. But the 2012 date is the exact center of where the Earth will sit on the galactic plane as the solar system passes through it. Interestingly enough, let me get back to science. We have, insurmountable evidence that shows the Earth has moved back and forth this galactic plane over and over and over again, based on rings of cosmic dust which are forced through the solar system, smashed through the atmosphere of Earth, and literally locked in the ice caps. As more ice builds on top, as we pass through again, more galactic dust gets locked in as we pass through about every 36,000 years. And we have, when you reach various harmonics within moving up and down that galactic plane, we have small tremors, where not only do we have the ice core layered, but we also have, at the exact times those ice cores become layered with the galactic dust, we also see a mass extinction cycle, coincidentally happening at the exact same time. And then, coincidentally, at the exact same time, you have a magnetic shift of the Earth happening, abrupt magnetic shift. They have already plotted the last 3 polar shifts. And I'm not talking magnetic polar shifts, I'm talking geographic polar shifts. Our current North Pole, where we now recognize our North geographic pole, before that it was in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. Before that it was in the middle of Hudson Bay. We're projecting that the next shift in about 6 years will have it 30 degrees toward Russia. And every time there's a shift, think of our planet as literally a ball of liquid. It is a water balloon, because we live on this very thin crust, which is only about 50 miles thick, that's somewhat solid. Powdery, but solid. And the inner part is mostly liquid, except for the very center, which is, again, solid iron. And we're floating through space, and we're spinning very, very slowly. So for all intents and purposes, we're almost a perfect sphere, but not quite. The bulges of the equator, because we're equivalent of a water balloon spinning, the equator of our planet, geographic equator, is slightly larger than the distance between the North and the South Pole. But the diameter increase is greater than the largest mountain on the planet. So that if you were to shift the axis of the Earth and it creates a new equator, what happens is the Earth reorients itself ever so slightly, which means the new equator drops 2 or 3 miles down, and the old equator, drops 2 or 3 miles down from where it's at, and the new equator pops up 2 or 3 miles. So you literally have a reorientation of all the continents on Earth.
So you would have a new ice age in different parts of the world that didn't have before. You would have new mountain ranges formed and different things like that.
Exactly. Right now I am talking to you from Las Vegas. 8 miles from here are massive coral heads from the last pole shift. Brand new coral head that popped up about 3,000 years ago, 3,600 years ago, from the bottom of the ocean. The middle part of the North America was on the bottom of the ocean, and you have coral head up there on the top of a mountain. It wasn't eroded for tens of thousands of years or even millions of years. It would be gone. There'd be nothing left. It's practically new coral head. Now, that is what happened during the last shift, and that adds credence to these legends like Atlantis, the lost continent of Atlantis, disappeared into the sea. They're literally talking about the reshaping of continents, where a third of all the coastlines on the planet will instantly be eradicated. Now, the scary part is we all love the ocean, probably 30 to 40% of the world's population lives within a few miles of the ocean.
Oh, yeah.
That's very
and
true.
that's a really scary fact. And so that whenever one of these things occur, and it will occur with only subtle warning, almost like the Bible will say, as a thief in the night. You don't know it's coming until it's too late. It just suddenly shifts. And what happens is you're going to have massive tsunamis, and literally you won't be able to drive fast enough because it will move 50, 100 miles inland, and if the Earth changes its poles and your section of the continent just happens to be a mile underwater, there is nothing you'll be able to do.
So what does the theory of plate tectonics have to do with this pole shift? How does that play into it?
Well, the theory of plate tectonics, I know they call it a theory, but it's pretty much fact.
Well, yeah.
All of them mapped out.
Right.
And every time the pole shifts, it reshuffles the plates. And because we see these plates, and they're all loosely interconnected around the planet, the plates give us a good indication of when the next shift is going to occur. For example, since 1973, we monitor every single large earthquake that has occurred. In the 70s, we had, I think, 8 major earthquakes. In the decade of the 80s, we had 15. The decade of the 90s, we had 24. And this first 6 years of the 2000s decade, we've had over 25 major earthquakes. The solar system is approaching the gravitational plane, what we refer to as the gravitational plane of the galaxy. And the gravitational field, the closer we get, the more it starts to affect the solar system. We are already now seeing the anomalous effects that are going on. Last year, for example, was a 11-year minimum for solar flares. We had 11 X-class flares, the largest possible flares you could have in a year, which is supposed to be a solar minimum. We had more flares than you have during a solar maximum. We see hurricanes, tornadoes, snowstorms popping up all over the planet anomalously, but it's not just happening to our planet. It's happening to various anomalies are happening to every planet in our solar system. The atmospheric pressure of Saturn in 18 months has increased 30%. If that was Earth, all life on Earth would have ceased to exist already. The southern half, the entire bottom half of Mars in the last 4 months is undergoing a very large storm. In fact, the storm right now covers half the planet, the southern half of the planet. There's nothing like that could ever happen on this planet, supposedly. Earthquake activity has been increasing dramatically. This relates directly to your plate tectonics. Whenever the plates rub against each other, they create a little bit of friction. We feel that shifting in terms of vibrating ground, earthquakes. 3 months ago, we had 305 level 4 earthquakes on Earth. 2 months ago, we had 336 level 4 earthquakes and above. In the last 30 days, we've had 436 level 4 earthquakes.
Well, let me stop you there for a second. I want to mention something that's very strange. You know, we live in northwestern North Carolina, and we never have earthquakes here. In the past, 2 months, we've had like four earthquakes that were above a 3-point?
Yeah.
Considered micro.
They're considered micro quakes, but we never have, and we had them like all in a row within a series of a week.
That's
it's just
very
really,
unusual.
really odd. And then we had some really strong F3 tornadoes that came through on our eastern North Carolina that killed like 7 people.
Yeah.
And these are things that just don't happen out where we're at.
No.
There are anomalies that are happening all over the planet. Last year they had a hurricane in Australia where they never have hurricanes. A Category 5 hurricane is defined as 165 miles an hour sustained winds. It's, quote, theoretically, we think we know everything, the fastest possible winds you could have. They had sustained winds devastating the entire region at 195 miles an hour.
Oh, my God.
The scientists can't even explain how winds could even move that fast. We had an anti-clockwise tornado in Oklahoma last year.
Really?
Whoa, that's weird.
It's not possible.
No, I didn't think it was
We're
possible.
in the northern hemisphere, as everybody knows, when drain goes.
Well, it's like the sink, yeah, exactly.
Direction. It was going the wrong way.
That is really weird.
Scratching their head and they don't have a clue. Last winter we had 13 foot in just a few days dump on a city in Japan, who never gets more than 2 or 3 feet a year. So we have, and these are, but the most important anomaly is all the things that are happening we think are happening to Earth, we are contributing to man. We really have nothing to do with this. All these earthquakes that are happening constantly.
So you're saying the Republicans were right all along about the global warming?
we have done very little to affect that. Quite honestly, you could probably burn up all the forests on the planet, not that I would advocate that at all, and it would have very little effect. All the 5 of the planets, the temperatures of the planets have actually gone up the exact same amount as planet Earth in the same amount of time, and we know they don't have people on them.
Well,
Take that, Peter.
Before we
Sorry,
get into,
that was terrible.
We've got about 11 minutes before our next break. I want to know what makes this different from like the Planet X theory, the Nibiru, I believe is the way it's pronounced.
Yeah,
Are you familiar with this theory?
Nibiru, yes.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm familiar with all of those. Yes.
About the planet, the binary solar system, and the other planet passing through, causing the polar shift.
I mean, essentially,
so this is different because there's no planet, there's no binary sun passing through. This is just something that occurs every 3,500 years, give or take a few.
Right, but there actually could be something passing through, but it's indirect. I'll explain after the show.
Okay.
After your break.
Oh, okay. That's great. Well, we've got another 10 minutes. I mean, we can start on it now if you want, or we can.
I'd be happy to.
Okay.
Sure.
We have a galactic plane. Now, the ancient Mayans referred to the galactic plane, which is the gravitational disk of our galaxy, as the dark rift. It's referred to as the dark rift. In fact, we even refer to it today as the dark rift. Isn't that interesting? Over 3,000 years later, we call it the same thing. Because if you look at our galaxy from the side, of course you can't do that because we're actually stuck on this planet, but you can extrapolate all the data and draw a picture of it. There's a thin, very dark, if not black line running exactly through the center of our galaxy. That is where all the accumulated mass that doesn't have the momentum to move up and down psychically above and below the galactic plane comes to a rest. And that resting dust, which consists of planetoids, literally dust, planetoids, asteroids, etc., creates a disk around the center of the galaxy. Now, our solar system moves above and below that galactic plane. The Mayans indicated that every time we move, we come to the end of an age, which they say will end in the year 2012, and the scientists today agree mathematically our solar system is heading right toward it, and it is the remnants of a giant spinning black hole in the middle of our galaxy that creates that gravitational plane. When we hit it, the Earth will undergo all of these changes. Now, because this same plane contains all the asteroids and planet-sized bodies that don't have the momentum to move up and down it, and movement is relative, these planetoids could just be sitting there, and our entire solar system is flying through it. So that from a relative state of being, you could say our solar system is stationary, and these giant asteroids are pushing on through.
Okay.
So now, the reason why we have documented information spanning back 9,050 years. The Solomon translation is the first one from the Book of the Dead describing 9,500 BC, by the way. 9,050 BC describes the pole shift, where the sun rose and set at a new location. The Corbin describes a star, which he refers to as the destroyer, that comes about every 3,600 years, exactly like the Mayans' cyclic calendar. Ancient Chinese writings say the sun set in one day, rose up from the west, and set again in a different position. That, by the way, corresponds to approximately 700 BC, where the Bible reports that the Nebuchadnezzar sundial went backward 10 steps, basically a third of a day, and then went forward again. So we also have, we have Nostradamus referring to a bearded star that will move through the solar system. Mother Shipton refers to a fiery dragon that will approach Earth during this time. The Mayan calendar refers to a red comet. The Aztec calendar also refers to that. The Bible, Revelations, refers to a star which will hit Earth, causing massive loss of life. Remote viewers actually see a large passing space object, but they don't. But the source of the space object is actually the real danger. It's not the object itself.
So these people, the object itself in the past may have been like a precursor, a warning sign of what's to come.
Right, but when it comes, what immediately follows is the devastation. Let's look, for example. Do we have 5 minutes for?
Oh yeah, we've got 6 actually.
Let me present a theory. We know that within about 6 years the Earth will pass through the galactic plane. We know that the Earth's pole shift will happen. We know that 1/3 of the people on this planet will die almost immediately, within 48 hours. These are horrible things to say, but we do know that that is going to happen. Now, we also believe that most of the world governments know this. I mean, they're not dumb. They know what's coming. They're preparing for it. So you see all these strange, positionings of the various governments of the world, and it makes sense the way they're preparing themselves for this event. There will be another percentage of the world lost, life lost due to lack of technology, lack of food, lack of, medical supplies. For instance, I live in Las Vegas right now. Las Vegas, you cannot evacuate an entire city of 1.5 million people without technology, electricity to pump gas, water. Everybody will die here probably within a month, and they will have very few means to escape if we lost technology for several months, which we will. So basically, Las Vegas and everybody in here, it's a death trap. And I'm not going to be here, obviously, when it happens.
Well, we're going to ask you after the break where the safest places are. I don't want to give that away yet.
No,
got to keep that cliffhanger going out there, But yeah, I mean that's a total devastation.
Yeah, but so let's say this galactic plane. We know we're heading toward it. We know this is going to happen. Now, this galactic plane has very large asteroids and very small asteroids. And let's say that. Now, this is where we do not have any scientific evidence. Let's say there is a large planet-sized type body that all of these ancient texts refer to. The Mayans, the Aztecs, all the old, the Corbin, Nostradamus, Mother Shipton, even the Bible refers to it as this being out there. The destroyer, the fiery dragon, the bearded star, red comet, whatever you want to call it, they all refer to this one thing. But let's suppose there is a very large body on this plane, and say it's paralleling us, but it's staying on the plane, and we're cycling above and below it. This is what remote viewing sees. We see this as what is actually occurring, so that when our solar system pushes through the plane, the very first thing that we encounter is this cyclic event. From our perspective, it's cyclic, but we're the one that's doing the cycle. It's not moving in and out of our solar system. We are moving up and down through the galactic plane. So it comes through our solar system. Well, what follows it? Because it has a giant gravitational field. First of all, the small asteroids would be following it, and behind it would be larger asteroids. So as it approached the Earth, the extra gravitational pull of this mass would, in conjunction with the gravitational plane of the galaxy that we're going through, will shift to the Earth, which we have seen locked in the polar ice cap, locked in the magnetic lattice structure of the cooling magma in deep Atlantic core samples. The Earth will shift. The second thing that will happen, as this passes through our solar system, large asteroids or small asteroids will follow with it, behind it, which will, basically pelt the Earth. Oh, by the way, if it passes between the Earth and the Sun, its gravitational pull will pull coronal mass ejections from the Sun toward the Earth. When it moves away, those coronal mass ejections will hit the Earth and fry it. Secondly, the small asteroids will hit the Earth because they're being pulled with it. Thirdly, the large asteroids will hit the Earth. Basically, it's a series of basic common physics steps that happens. Now, ironically, if you look at, let's pick one text that we're familiar with, Revelations, the seventh trumpet, for example. The opening of the sixth seal, the earth shifts. All the mountains on earth quake, and basically the whole earth shifts, and everything basically is a mess. The very next seal, seventh seal, first trumpet, the earth gets singed by fire. A third of the earth is singed. Guess what? That's the coronal mass ejection due to this body. The second and third trumpets, little asteroids hit the seas and the land. Well, you would expect that. Fourth trumpet, a big asteroid hits the earth. You would expect that too. It calls it wormwood. And just like playing pool, everybody who's played a game of pool, if you don't hit the ball dead on, and if you're off to the right or off to the left, you end up spinning the ball. So that giant asteroid, when the fourth seal hits, causes the earth to spin up, which is what you would expect. The fifth seal, the fifth trumpet, it clearly says that the earth has spun up by literally 30%. The sun doesn't shine for a third of the time. The moon doesn't, and stars don't shine for a third of the time. It doesn't say they're 1/3 dimmer. It says they literally don't shine for a third of the time. Meaning, instead of 24-hour days, we have 18-hour days. And by the way, we have recorded that this happened to Earth about 700 BC, where our Earth took 360 days to go around the sun. Now it takes 365. So this will happen again.
Well, I hate to cut you off, but we're going to have to take another break, and we're going to be right back, and we're going to tell you exactly where the safest place to be is on the planet when we come back with Brent Miller. Give us a call here, 877-722-7382, or just email us because our chat room is down, worldoftheunexplained at Gmail, G4Google.com. We'll be back after this.
Every Halloween at midnight, the devil simultaneously appears in two places: the high plains of India and a quiet cemetery in Kansas. It's November 2nd, the Day of the Dead. Two federal marshals report to the small town of Shinbone, Kansas, moments after a tornado warning, to transport a prisoner with no past, no identity. He is known only as Sin Jin Smith. Starring Roddy Piper, Richard Tyson, Jonathan Davis, Kevin Gage, Gary Casper, John Philbin, Billy Duffy, Charles Cyphers, and Eileen Dietz. Check out the movie that critics are calling one of 2007's most anticipated horror films by visiting www.sinjinsmith.com. That's www.sin-jinsmyth.com. St. Jin Smith is a Snapkick Productions film, written and directed by Ethan Detmeyer. Coming soon to a theater near you.
Remember when paranormal radio used to be open to New Age ideas and every possible form of spiritual enlightenment?
It's a religion based on the understanding of consciousness, the understanding of nature, in particular fertility laws.
To my spirit guides are those who have passed over. And, I've always been able to see colors around people, which I've known now to be called auras.
Maybe coming to the close of one kind of psychic life, and I very much believe that this was what the Maya were really trying to talk about.
Well, we're not putting up with that. World of the Unexplained. Conservative paranormal talk. Big on God. Big on Guns. With your hosts Jay Scott and Trent Lackey. Heard Mondays live from 8 to 10 Eastern on Planet Paranormal Radio.
Welcome back to World of the Unexplained, and we're speaking tonight with Brent Miller. Give us a call, 877-722-7382, or 877-SCARE-U2 for those of you numerically impaired individuals. It looks like, hang on, I think we do have an email here. It is from Chris in Maine, and he said he would would chime in since the chat room is down. Great show. He misses Pluto. Okay. Well, thanks, Chris.
We all miss Pluto.
Out there.
Because that mnemonic doesn't work anymore.
We all miss Pluto. Yeah,
My
it's
very
no longer.
educated mother just served us 9, and that's it.
Served us 9. Yeah.
Anyway.
Well, anyway, let's talk a little bit though about. Thanks for the email, Chris, by the way. And like I said, you can call us here at 877-SCARE-U2. I want to ask, we were talking on the break, and you said that you were a Christian. I hope it's okay I bring that up.
Absolutely.
If it's not, I'm going to bring it up anyway. But no, okay. The question I have is, how do you know that the stuff that you're summoning through this remote viewing is not demonically enhanced to deceive people? In general, you're saying that people that are atheists can get some of the similar readings. It changes their life and their ability to see the future. I mean, seeing the future, seeing the past. I mean, doesn't this seem like something that would have some kind of satanic agenda behind it, possibly?
It's kind of interesting you asked that question. I have a very, very long, probably several hours to discuss that particular subject. But we don't have hours, so
definitely not.
Just a few minutes.
All right.
Can. We have one of the things that we have looked at. Well, let me talk about first. Before I answer that question directly, let me talk about the Horizon Project and this information. The information that we have was derived based on pure science, the science of the pole shift. We've mapped out exactly where the poles were. The cyclic pattern of the cosmic dust locked in the polar caps, cyclically. The genetic rise and fall of massive populations of the planet, which coincide to the locking of the dust. The very, very quick and instantaneous magnetic shifts in the cooling molten lava at the bottom of the ocean core samples along the Atlantic ridge. Not the slow migration of the magnetic pole over time, but the instantaneous shifts. These all correspond exactly the same, in the same cyclic time frame. And it also corresponds to exactly the time frame the ancient Mayans created for their calendar. They put such incredible mathematics into it, mathematics that we don't have today. And I do say that quite sincerely. We are not the pinnacle of technology. The pinnacle of technology was a civilization that's long gone on this planet. Their calendars, for example, had 13 different cycles. We basically have 3. We have day and night. There's one cycle. We have months, and we have years. Our calendar is designed to go on forever. If I were to say to somebody the year 20,345, they know exactly what that is. But that's not so with the Mayan calendar. They mapped out everything. The time it takes for the sun to go around, the planets to go around the sun was a year. They had 9 other cycles.
I hate to interrupt you, Brent, but we've got a caller.
We got a caller.
Caller, you're on.
Hi.
Hi.
Oh, hey there.
Hi, this is Laura from Kansas.
Hey, Laura.
Hey, Laura from
What's up
Kansas.
with our chat room?
It's back.
All right, the chat room's back. Thank you, Laura.
That's what I called for.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
You don't have a question?
No.
Thank you, Laura.
Sorry.
No question?
All right, well.
I'm the tech support person. Have a good show.
Thanks, Laura.
Thank you so much, Laura.
Bye-bye.
Okay.
So chat room's back up, guys. Look, we're going to jump in with you. Come on in and ask questions there if you want to. Go ahead. I'm sorry to interrupt you, Brent.
Oh, no problem. Please do. Let me get back to the question, though. Before I talk about the influencing or the possible source of the information for remote viewing, the Horizon Project is based almost entirely on scientific data. The best and the brightest thought leaders of the day in nearly every scientific field were consulted, Nobel Prize laureates, etc., in order to derive the information, and they all agree with each other. In fact, the irony is that this information has been written down well over the last 10,000 years. The first Sumerian writing was 9,050 years BC, according to our if you convert it to our Gregorian calendar, that discussed the pole shift and the rise and falls of civilizations.
Wow.
Now, the Horizon Project and what's coming, what I was presenting, is purely based on science. And they actually there's much more information than that. We have an exact chronology and timeline as to what's about to happen. We see right now what's happening to the solar system. The weather changes, the increase in tectonic plate activity, the frequency and intensity, the atmospheric pressure on the other planets, massive storms occurring on other planets, rising of temperatures on 5 of the planets in our solar system, X-class flares like we've never seen before coming from the sun at a solar min, and it's increasing because we are approaching this, just like the Mayans said, and just like hundreds of texts said over the last 10,000 years. And I am a Christian, yes. And interestingly enough, if you look into the Bible and look at it carefully and look at exactly what it says, it describes exactly the same sequence that hundreds of other books said that are non-Christian books over thousands of years. Jesus himself referred to it in Matthew 24:22, referring to the end-time events, saying that the days would be shortened, which corresponds to the opening of the trumpets in Revelations, where this giant asteroid hitting the Earth causes it to spin faster.
No, most biblical theologians would say that this time happens during the Great Tribulation, after the church has been raptured, and after the Antichrist is made his reign on the earth. What do you think of that? We've got a caller. Hang on, let him hold. I'm in the middle of a thought here, man.
Okay.
Go ahead, Brent.
Actually, the second Horizon Project DVD is going to discuss the exact chronology and timeline of the events as we see it from a scientific standpoint. And it actually links in quite a number of religious-type references and documented texts as far back as the Sumerian scrolls for thousands of years. So yes, we do cover that in future releases. The next release is going to be in about 3 months.
You should send us a copy of that and come back on the show, Brent.
Oh, we will, absolutely.
Okay, let's take this call.
Caller, you on the air? What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hi, Trent. Scott. It's Scott from Omaha.
Hey, Scott. How's it going?
Hey, great show as usual. Question I have for your guest is talking about using remote viewing for gain. He mentioned earlier about using remote viewing to predict lottery numbers.
Oh, yeah.
Right. And I'd like to keep an open mind about this sort of thing, but I guess my main criticism of that sort of claim is if that's the case, wouldn't you win the like the $1 million jackpot weeks on end and all the
sports betting
about it and things like that? What's the typical response to that kind of question?
I'm not sure what the question is, Scott. What's the response to that kind of thing?
Yes, to the notion that if you could win the lottery, that it would be done every week. You'd be taking home millions of dollars every
actually,
week.
you can do it every day, not every week. The lottery I'm referring to is the Daily 3 California Lottery, which is only 500 to 1. So you put $100 down, you get 50,000 back. But California is pari-mutuel, so it varies each time based on the number of winners, from $350 a ticket to about $600 a ticket. But yes, you can win that much every week. In fact, we have well documented as basically a get-together of the A team, a remote viewing team, what we refer to as the A team. Silly. We all flew around the country to meet at my house.
What are the odds of that, though, Brent?
They're astronomical. For every win, it's 1,000 to 1. So if you win 8 times in a row, it's 1,000. So that's 3 to 8, 24. That's 1 to the 24th power.
Good gosh.
Basically, the number of grains of sand on the planet. I mean, it's beyond any doubt that we have, dealing with a source of information that just simply gives us the answer.
I think Scott's question was, why wouldn't this stop people? What's to stop people from going out and doing this every day and just winning a lot of money? I mean,
it would shut down the lottery.
There's nothing to stop people from doing that, Scott. But there is something interesting that happens. When my wife and I first decided to do that about 4 years ago, because we do live in Vegas and we're going to be moving soon, we went into we don't know anything about gambling or betting, even though I live in Vegas.
Oh, wow.
And we decided to do sporting events. And it's very, very simple. You just simply say something like, between this team and the next, Astros versus Seattle, NFL football game / winning team hometown's most significant feature. You're either going to get the Astrodome or you're going to get the Seattle Space Needle. And it's very clear, very direct, very clear. It only takes 5 minutes to know who the winner is. So we did this for 3 or 4 games, and we decided that we were going to do parlays, because there was never any doubt ever. You always know the answer. It's very clear. Because, so we walk in and we place the bet at the casino. We've never done it before, so we had to act really stupid, like, how do we do this? And when we turned around and looked at all the people sitting there, we both felt guilty. It almost was like we were doing something wrong, seriously wrong. I'm not joking. We seriously wrong.
What about people out there without a conscience?
What are we doing? Something's wrong. And of course we win. So we come back that night and they say, "Oh my God, you're the long shot."
You're the long shot.
That's 50,000. Well, guess what? We did it again the very next night.
I guess Scott's got a good question. It kind of sides.
But you know what? You finally realize that, wait a minute. If you have source to knowledge and information, and everybody does, you can't take credit for it because everybody should know how to do this, and everybody should be doing this. Even the ancient Chinese taught it in the monasteries. They didn't call it remote viewing, but they taught how to access the Akashic records, and they passed it on to priests, whereas now it really is available to anybody.
Well, I mean,
realize there's more important questions to ask than silly lottery numbers.
Does that get it for you, Scott?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Great. I just had you still on the line here. We're going to go ahead and let you go. Thanks for calling, though. We appreciate it.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
I guess what I was getting at is, let's just say I'm a professional hitman, and I use this remote viewing to say, okay, when would be the most optimum time for me to kill somebody? You know, what's stopping them from using this Akashic record or this vast net of information for doing evil things? We
can cover that. I can give you a very direct, honest answer for that too.
Okay.
Nothing will stop you. Just like the sun shines on the good and the bad. It will not differentiate your intent and what you do with it. If you ask, you get the question. However, your particular question, what's the best way for me to kill somebody? I don't think that would be answered. Remember, the source of the information isn't static; it's dynamic, and it's good and benevolent. I doubt it will answer that question.
So you think, going back to what I'd asked you earlier, you think the source of this is more God than demonic?
Absolutely.
You said angelic was the way you described it earlier.
Angelic. You can target this a million different ways, and every remote viewer tries to figure out where the source is, what the source is, and it's not global human consciousness. It has nothing to do with human consciousness, in the future, in the past. You're not connected to a global mind. You're connected to what we think is more like a librarian, and your question, literally ask the librarian to pull out the appropriate book, so to speak, and to hand you the answer in the book. And it goes and fetches it. And 99.999 times out of a million, it will always give you the information you ask for. Not only the answer, but in the perfect context. But every now and then, it won't give you the answer. I'll give you a quick example of what I mean about angelic.
Okay.
This might open up a few eyes, just a little. It did for me. 9 years ago, somebody gave me a blind target. And I did the target. I was very upset because, you run through the remote viewing protocol on the target. Oh, by the way, when I say blind, I don't know what the question is. Somebody defined the question and assigned it a set of reference numbers. And they simply handed me the reference numbers. Well, the reference numbers mean nothing except to refer to the actual question. So when I want to know what the answer to these reference numbers is, the matrix or the source of the information knows what I really want is to wherever this question is assigned. So the person who gives the question knows what the question is. I don't know what it is. So I do the target, and I give them the answer. And I say, look, you're not going to like this, but the answer is, the answer is, quote, the person asking you the question has evil intent, therefore you won't be given the answer. No good could come of any white man ever knowing this answer. And the phrase white man was very specific. So basically, after doing the entire session, I got that was the answer, and it was really mind-boggling to me because I've never did a session where I didn't get an absolute answer. No matter what, it was always an absolute answer. But this is one where it refused to give the answer. This was my first eye-opening experience that this is not a static system. It is living. And so I asked, what gives? What's going on? Because, of course, this is making me nervous. I said, well, we give that same cue to everybody in training because we want to know the answer to it. And nobody can give us the answer. Everybody gets basically the same thing. I said, well, what's the question? I said, well, the question is, where's the missing piece of the Hopi Indian clan fire tablet? There's a corner of the Hopi the Fire Clan tablet that was broken off. Where is it? It should be a very, very simple question. It's here underneath these mountains in this city by this bush, etc., buried 2.5 feet down, wrapped around this mummy, etc. It should be a very simple answer. But everybody gets the same thing. Basically, we're not telling you, or you're not going to be known because nothing good can come out of it if a white man finds it, which didn't make sense. So I had to research the Fire Clan tablet to find out what was this all about. Well, then it made perfect sense. They have a legend that in the future, after the corner was broken off and lost, a white man in the future would discover the missing piece of the Hopi Indian clan fire tablet. That white man will be worshipped by default as the Messiah for the Hopi Nation. And that is not allowed by the source of the information. The source of the information will not allow that to happen. So for some reason, this thing that the ancient Chinese referred to, the Akashic records, that we all live in this sea of information that is intelligent and dynamic, won't allow certain bits of information to get out.
Now, I want to go back. I'll ask you this later, but where's the I guess the safest place to be in general when these world events take place? Or would you just say, once again, that that's something that only you would know for your own personal experience through remote viewing?
Well, if you want to be absolutely certain as to where to go, remote viewing can tell you precisely where to go. For example, the cue would be your name / optimum trajectory, which means the best timeline for you to follow in the future / location. Where is the best place for me to be in the future? And it will project out all the millions of timelines and interactions that you have with every possible person, and knowing your needs, because of course the word optimum means best scenario, which means that it will know things that you have no comprehension of, i.e., let's suppose that after the pole shifts and there's no technology for 6 months or 9 months, that 3 months into it, you need a hernia operation. Well, if you just happen to be where you're living, where there's no doctor who can do the hernia operation or take out the appendix and your appendix ruptures, you'll die.
You might be in a safe place, but you would still die because you're not in the right place where there's a doctor.
And it knows that, so it reorients you to be in the absolute perfect place. That is probably the best scenario. But short of that is there's common sense things that you can do.
Stay away from the ocean.
Get away from the ocean.
Yeah.
In fact, the irony is that once we started talking to these doctors, the physicists, the quantum physicists, even quantum physics realize this is happening. When we started talking to these doctors, they would say, yeah, one of them came right out, yeah, we've known, my wife and I have known this is happening, and we've already moved away. We left Virginia, we now live in Kansas. I go, what?
Wow.
A lot of people who are in the know are moving away. You've heard rumors that Washington, D.C. is planning to move to Denver, Colorado in 2009. I don't know if that's true or not, but there are rumors, and it kind of makes sense because you want to be away from the coast, around 2011.
Huh.
And Denver is a mile-high city, so you want to be up in the air. Now, you also want to be able to, what if you are hit by that 1/3 of CME blast from the sun, where 1/3 of the Earth gets scorched? Because this is a scenario that has also been played out several times on Earth. Hundreds of thousands of miles deep beneath the sand in India are seared so intensely it's turned the sand to glass, a sheet of glass up the side of some of the mountains and up along thousands of miles of valley deep under the sand. When it couldn't be a radiation blast or a bomb, it has to be a complete searing of plasma that would hit the Earth from the sun. So this has happened before, as the text will also say, and as the writings and different religious books will show. Also, the basic physics of moving through the galactic plane will suggest that will happen. So if you don't know where that 1/3 is, and we have no way of knowing where that 1/3 of the planet is until it happens, and then it's too late, unless you use remote viewing, then the best thing to do is wherever you decide you're going to be, also build an underground bunker, not bunker per se to live in, but just a safe place to go down for a few days while everything is being seared up on top. Then you come out and you can, basically continue life. We're not talking about the end of the world or anything close to that, but it is going to be horribly devastating. It will be, as the Mayan said, an age of purification, an age of an era of man, and a beginning.
Now, what's the? Well, I'll give that actually when we come back because I've got some questions about that as well. But so the second episode of the Horizon Project, when is that going to be available?
Probably around March. We're finishing up some interviews right now, and we have a few more flights to take. And we're compiling. We have more than enough information, but we want to make sure we're very thorough about it. There's going to be a total of 4 DVDs, and the second one will be about March, maybe February.
Okay, so we're looking at you said a 7-year timeline that you're actually going to put out in the second episode.
Exactly. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and it will combine physics. It will combine physics models of our solar system in the galaxy, overlapped on top of ancient texts and predictions by people, along with all the cyclic nature of these, previous cycles I've talked to you about magnetic shifts, pole shifts, rise and fall of civilizations, and of course the cosmic dust locking into the ice caps.
Okay. Excellent.
Go ahead.
I only have 2 minutes for this, but I am no scientist.
One actually, but go ahead.
Maybe we'll just wait because it may take me a while to figure this out.
We can go on break early. That's fine.
You want to do that?
We're going to do that. We're going to take a break, and we're going to be right back with more of Brent Miller. Call in, let us know what you think. We're going to be right back. World of the Unexplained, right out.
Roswell, UFOs, flying saucers, alien abduction. Are we alone? Information regarding this and many other questions about the unknown are only a click away at www.theufostore.com. The UFOstore.com offers hundreds of DVDs about UFOs, aliens, crop circles, conspiracies, Bigfoot, suppressed science, ancient mysteries, and the latest DVD releases like Dan Aykroyd Unplugged on UFOs and the Alien Files 5 DVD set. The UFOstore.com also offers the book Roswell, It Really Happened by Jesse Marcel, one of the last survivors of the Roswell UFO crash that examined the spacecraft wreckage in 1947, revealing its hidden secrets. Log on to www.theufostore.com and request a free UFO Store catalog. To receive a free catalog by mail, call 541-523-2630. That's 541-523-2630. Theufostore.com, the largest selection of UFO products on the internet.
Remember when paranormal radio used to be open to New Age ideas and every possible form of spiritual enlightenment?
It's a religion based on the understanding of consciousness, the understanding of nature, in particular fertility laws.
To my spirit guides are those who have passed over. And, I've always been able to see colors around people, which I've known now to be called auras.
Maybe coming to the close of one kind of psychic life, and I very much believe that this was what the Maya were really trying to talk about.
Well, we're not putting up with that. World of the Unexplained, conservative paranormal talk. Big on God, big on guns. With your hosts Jay Scott and Trent Lackey. Heard Mondays, live from 8 to 10 Eastern on Planet Paranormal Radio.
And we're back to World of the Unexplained. Last half hour.
Okay, guys, I've got something really cool here. That
important announcement.
Yeah, really important announcement here that you're going to be able to save some money on the remote viewing course if you want to take it. If you want to take this remote viewing course, get a pen and paper. I'll repeat this again before the end of the show. But you can save $25 if you type in the number 362RV4. So RV stands for remote viewing, but 362RV4 at the website www.learnrv.com. That's going to save you $25 off of the complete RV package, the complete remote viewing package. If you put in that promotional code, that's good for this show, World of the Unexplained, and that package retails for $299, which is a $4,500 per person value. Let's talk some more. I'm going to give that code a little later in the show, But you were mentioning Walter Cronkite during the break and him coming to do a news report on this remote viewing stuff. Brent, what happened?
Right, about 10 years ago, like I said, everybody, they don't understand that we really do live in this world of information, but nobody sees it for what it is. They get, when your telephone rings, and it's happened to everybody in their life, the telephone rings, and just for that exact split moment, they know who's on the other line.
Oh, yeah.
Right? They call it psychic, but really it is not a psychic experience. In fact, in our basically, I don't know how to say it, but experience, there is no such thing as psychic. It's basically being in touch with this underlying field that gives you the information you want. So at that moment, that exact moment, they were in touch with the information. But so Walter Cronkite wanted to do a new special on remote viewing, and basically, like, he wanted to debunk it because he knew it came out of the military. And they were using it as a protocol for intelligence gathering. They were doing incredible drug busts. They were finding biological weapons in other countries. They were having an incredible volume of success in the military, developing this. So he wanted to go out, and he flew out to Beverly Hills, and the requirement was, yes, you can interview us if we spend 2 days with you and teach you the basic protocol. Then you can ask us anything in the world you want to know. So he spent the 2 days and said, okay, ask away, anything. And he didn't know what to do because he came to debunk remote viewing. And to his chagrin, he couldn't not only debunk it, but he could actually remote view. And he could do anything that all these other remote viewers can do. And he had to walk away without a story because he said the world isn't ready for it. He couldn't actually tell people that this thing called remote viewing is real and that anybody can know anything they want simply by asking. There are no secrets, period. And so he went back, and there was no story. Fortunately, it doesn't end there. The Fox network, in Search Of program, decided to put remote viewing to the test. And so they flew out, cameras on, and said, okay, we have a question. And they just picked any remote viewer and said, okay, here's the question. We have hidden somebody. Somewhere on the planet, we have hidden somebody. And that person will stay there, and we want you to find the person. And the only thing we're going to give you is the person's first name, Charisse. So the question is, where is Charisse? So using remote viewing without the cameras ever being turned off, not even for a second, on the person, they filmed the entire remote viewing session from beginning to end. And the remote viewer gave his conclusion, the statement, Charisse is sitting at the Encounter Airport in LAX at a restaurant reading a book. That's where she is, and which was absolutely correct.
Wow.
Now, remote viewing can do any of these things very quickly and very efficiently. And the reason why we are blessed in this country, and this could not happen in any other country on earth except us, and most countries do have remote viewing protocols and remote viewing programs. In fact, we started ours because Russia was starting theirs back in the 60s. But we are blessed, and it's in the civilian population, and everybody can learn it, because our Congress, the head of the Senate subcommittee, who was in charge of intelligence, came to visit the remote viewing team as a top secret program, a black op program, who was doing all these wonderful things. And when he came in and actually saw what they were doing, that they could ask any question, it didn't matter what the question was, and get the answer, derive the answer, it terrified him. It scared him to the point where he made the comment, no human should know these things until after they are dead. The program was immediately canned and kicked out on the street. And that's why the civilian population in this country has these remote viewing protocols. If it wasn't for that one event, we would not have these protocols today, and we wouldn't be able to teach this to anybody.
Now, Major Ed Dane that teaches this program and teaches the program on the DVDs that you have available at learnrv.com.
Right.
You were telling us a story about him being on Coast to Coast. Can you repeat that story for our listeners?
Oh, that's an interesting story. As everybody, well, as I'm quite familiar with, Art Bell, and he he has Major Ed Dames on periodically, and when he was on one time, Major Ed Dames knew that Art Bell was going to ask him to basically find something. And so Ed, knowing that he was going to be targeted or asked to find this, to basically prove remote viewing one way or another, he went ahead and did a remote viewing session to find whatever it was that Art was going to ask him to find. So he's on the Art Bell show, and sure enough, Art says, what I want to find is a family heirloom. He says, stop right there. It's in this person's house, neighbor's house, behind the rocking chair, and it's your cane. And sure enough, he stops the show right there, calls, and finds, the artifact. And these kind of things are essentially, and I don't mean to be belittling to anybody that might interpret this as phenomenal, but once you learn remote viewing and you do these things a few times, you realize it's not very important to find things, find car keys, find items, find, using it to find things, because it has such unbelievable power. If you could have the ability to know anything simply by asking, are you going to waste your time to use it to find your car keys? Which people do, by the way, and I have, and find my wife's lost credit card, things like that. But, she just cleared her throat by me. So that, there's a whole world of information out there, and knowing that there's this background source of information that basically, in essence, is monitoring you, listening to all the questions that you have, and answering them in real time, precisely and accurately, it does change your life. It makes you realize you're not just, flesh and blood. There's more to you, and there's more of a purpose than just, living, growing, dying.
Well, let me mention this again. If you're listening now, and this is going to be for our podcast listeners as well, if you go to learnrv.com and you enter in the number 362RV4, you will receive a $25 discount on the RV, the complete remote viewing course, a $25 discount off of the $299 price, which is normally valued at $4,500 a person. And this course is taught by Major Ed Dane, and it's direct to you from learnrv.com. Remember, again, the code is 362RV4, 362RV4. And as soon as we sell 10 of these things, we're gonna get Chuck one of these programs too. We're going to put Chuck through the RV program because he's the agnostic one here, and we're going to put him through the program because I'm not sure if it's evil yet or not. But I haven't made up my mind. But we're going to put Chuck through the program. That's safe, and he's going to tell me who's going to win the Super Bowl this year. So you guys check it out, and we're going to see how much there is to this. And I think the only way you can do that is to actually see for yourself the kinds of things that this stuff can do.
Man,
am I right? Am I right in saying that, Brent?
Yeah, absolutely. One thing that we have, you've mentioned the concept twice, whether it's good or evil. I would like to make a comment. I mean, like I said before, I could speak for days on this subject, and we have done so much research and work into it. Knowledge can be used for good or bad. A gun can be used to protect or to commit a crime. Information can be used to be beneficial or harmful, but you will ultimately be held responsible for however you use information. The fact that it won't willingly give you information that you intend to use for harm speaks from the direction it's coming from. And one other thing that we've noticed is you can ask it, literally any question, any at all. So you can ask it things, how do I say this? You can basically determine its source, and people who have interrogated intensely the source of the data, every person, regardless of who they are or where they ask in time or what year or how they ask it, they always get the source is benevolent, kind, angelic, and godlike, and almost as if you're going to be held responsible. If you target now, I'm going to go out on a limb because this, even though people who are remote viewers, they're actually going to have to do these targets for themselves. Pick a person who is actually dying and actually target the death event itself. And it doesn't matter past, present, future. You actually see the entire sequence of events, and a lot of it is not physical. A lot of it is esoteric. So you can see that there's more happening in the background than what meets the eye. So we are more than just a physical being, and we do know beyond any doubt remote viewing is basically a gift. It's our knowledge. It is basically the, religious texts might call it like a guardian angel. It's the source of information, telling you right from wrong, answering all your questions so that you don't have an excuse after you die, saying, well, I didn't know. Well, you do know because it's been telling you every single moment of your life. You just never listened.
Well, let me ask you another question real quick. And go ahead. I just want to bring up what Scott had mentioned earlier in the chat room. But go ahead, Trent.
Well, I guess it's sort of a vaguely related topic. But when they closed down this program, the government closed down the PSYOPs program. And Ed Daines, he went out into the civilian population, and there's a number of civilians that had the ability now. Is that not to say that there are still members of the higher levels of the government who still are capable of using this ability?
Oh, I have no doubt that they reinstituted the program. No doubt at all. And in fact, I think it is bigger and stronger and more grand than we imagined it was in the past, because they know how absolutely incredibly powerful this is. It's something that scares you at the same time, especially in people in government who might have something to hide, but at the same time they know they can't live without it. So they keep it going and keep close tabs on it. So that's just my opinion. I have no proof. I have actually spoken with intelligence officers and other people in the government who have suggested very strongly that this is the case, but they have not come right out and said that that was the case.
Oh, I see.
So I believe they do have another full-fledged program that is completely unknown to the original remote viewing teams that went out into the civilian world.
Let's see. Okay. Go ahead, Scott.
Oh, I was just going to say, Scott from Omaha had mentioned earlier when he called in, he was asking questions about the lottery. And I guess, what his concern was, he says, well, let's just take, for example, if Jay, that's me, were to start remote viewing and I were to win the lottery, the $100 million or whatever, why don't I do it again the next time the lottery's up and it gets to a certain amount, and the next time and the next time, and make myself a multi-millionaire, and then wouldn't the news media be all over me hounding me about how I did it?
Well, I'm sure they would, but no remote viewer has done that yet.
And I guess that
remote viewers will win sporting events all the time, and they'll win small lotteries, hundreds of small lotteries, but no remote viewer has ever put themselves to the position where they would win a very large lottery.
Well, maybe the fact is, Scott, that if you consistently keep on winning these large lottery numbers, then you're starting to shift away from, okay, I want to be financially independent, to, okay, I'm going to be greedy. And if this thing is benevolent, then all of a sudden you're actually starting to use the remote viewing for negative purposes, not really to acquire.
It might not answer. If you want something like that, I want to win the 200 million mega Powerball, it may not actually give you the information. One thing we do know, you don't get wrong information, ever.
Sometimes you just don't get the information.
It may simply refuse to answer, which is extremely rare, but there's a serious reason for it. I was telling you, I think I was starting to tell you about an event. We had the A-team fly into my house in Vegas last August. And I said, okay, we're all in it was a business meeting. We had a whole series of agendas to discuss of the remote viewing targets, missing children we were going to find for these radio stations in this particular group. And, we had an entire list of agenda things we had to accomplish. But being all in Vegas, everybody said, let's do something fun. Let's do a little bit of gambling. So I said, fine. And so we set up 5 different teams that were playing. This was 9:30 in the morning, all at my house in Henderson. And the first game started at 4:05 p.m. So we picked 5 teams, and we determined the winners of all 5 teams. And then one of the remote viewers, and of course you bet a parlay 5 teams, and it was 70 to 1. So if you put $1,000 down, you win $70,000. And the maximum bet you can bet in Vegas on a parlay team of more than 3 parlays is $1,000 at any given casino. So One of the gentlemen, I'll just call him Alex, that's his first name, he walks up to me right before everybody goes out and starts betting, and he says, "How certain are you of the data?" And he's one of the newest remote viewers. And I looked at him and I said, "You really don't get it, do you?" I said, "You can never be more certain of any data in your entire life than this right here. It doesn't matter if it's into the future. It's already happened. These are the 5 winners." So he took that to heart, and he went out and he put the maximum $1,000 bet on every single casino he could possibly meet in the time between 1:30 and 4:05. The next morning, of course, he was going to each one of those casinos, collecting $70,000 from each of them.
Wow.
So we do know that on little things like that, I mean, it's big to a lot of people, and it's big to me, but little things like you're not trying to get rich or be greedy or whatever, it doesn't have a problem with that. But maybe if you want to win $200 million, it might look at your intent. It might look at the result. Is this going to result in a death, a car accident? Is this going to result in things down the road that you can't foresee? Is it doing something to help you instead of hurt you by not answering? I don't know. But for the most part, every possible question you can answer, it answers for you. Or you ask, it will answer.
Yeah, right.
But, yeah, as Scott was saying was true. If you were to actually do that, of course you would attract the media's attention.
Yeah.
But you know what? We live in a world where I don't think the people care. I really don't, because we have proven over and over again. They win lottery numbers all the time. I've won it 8 times. My wife and I can do sporting events anytime we want. In fact, when in the remote viewing classes, every single remote viewing class that we give, we're giving one in January in Ann Arbor, Michigan. We do sporting events. We do lotteries. We do these things. And everybody nails the target, just like every other class, because that's a topic people want to know about. And, you know, the general population doesn't care, even if they see it on TV and they see that a remote viewer nailed with the cameras on them constantly within a couple hours a particular person's location anywhere on the planet's surface. So then that begs the question, well, why don't we know where bin Laden is? Well,
we were just talking about that.
Right. We do. You know, any remote viewer can find him. But does the government really want to catch him? I don't know what their political agenda is.
I see.
That's a political question, not a location question.
Maybe sort of like how they found Saddam Hussein, you know, and
and with remote viewing, there are no secrets, and that really is the bottom line. And with this upcoming catastrophe that is happening, and I say that very sincerely, I do realize what I'm saying, and probably 2/3 of the people will die during this. 1/3 immediately, and another third over a period of a month or two due to lack of technology, food, drugs, Mad Max scenario, that kind of thing. I believe that remote viewing will help people a tremendous amount to get you in the right place, to make you as happy as you're going to be, to make you with your friends and family, which is the most important. We should all have learned that from last week at Thanksgiving. We celebrate Thanksgiving every year, celebrate friends and family, and we don't really take it to heart. Once Thanksgiving is over, we go back to our daily grind. And it's important that really is the most important, and it will become most important for everybody when this event happens.
Oh.
Wow.
Yeah.
I don't even know what to say other than we're going to have to go. But, you know, Brent, we want to have you back on, and I'm going to call you tomorrow if that's okay, and we'll set something up for in 2007. Is that good?
Be happy to come back on your show. It'd be a pleasure.
Okay, great.
Fantastic.
And we appreciate you coming on. Thank you so much. It's been wonderful.
All right, thank you. And if I could give the website again one more
Absolutely.
Sure, go for it.
All right. The Horizon Project DVD, which basically shows the starting point at what's about to come down with some scientific information and evidence, is at thehorizonproject.com. The next disc is going to be coming out in about 3 months. And remote viewing can be learned at learnrv.com. And our toll-free number is 866-607-8439. And again, I really appreciate Jay and to being on your show, and looking forward to talking with you again.
All right, we'll set that up tomorrow. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right. Wow, that was some stuff, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was.
Okay.
I never got around to my question about Newtonian gravity and stuff like that.
Well, you can ask him next time.
Well, that's true.
Newtonian gravity. Well, you can ask him next time.
Yeah, well, like I said, maybe you'll give me a little time to do some research.
Oh yeah,
and
definitely.
actually don't sound like a complete scientific idiot.
But we're gonna put Chuck through this program, man. That's gonna be great.
Yeah,
that's gonna be awesome.
Yeah.
Chuck, are you up for it, man?
Oh yeah, man, totally.
You'll do it?
Oh, definitely, man. I'm stoked about it already. You guys need to buy 10 of these things.
That's right.
I can actually probably get it if they don't, but I'll talk to them about it. But seriously, yeah, we need you guys to buy some of these things, and because I want to know what you guys think of it.
That's true.
We have tons of listeners, and we know you're out there. You send us email, which we try to respond to all those. I think we do respond to most of them, unless you're in a ghost hunters group that wants to be on our show. We don't do that. That's why we just generally don't respond a lot of times.
Yeah.
I know it's bad, but there's so many. It's no offense, guys. There's so many ghost hunting groups out there that it's just impossible for us to do something like that.
Speaking of ghost hunting groups, Scott.
Yeah, go ahead, Trent. Tell them about it. What's going on this Friday and Saturday live?
This Saturday, Scott and myself
and Chuck
and Doug from Ghostly Talk
and
John Zaffis.
That's right. I'm picking him up Friday at the airport, and Dr. Alan Prophet from Western Carolina. No, not Western anymore. Appalachian State University in North Carolina. We're going down to thetwinlakeslodge.com. We're going down to Twin Lakes Lodge in Greensboro, haunted bed and breakfast, and we're going to be there all night Friday, all night Saturday. We don't have a schedule up yet. We will be posting it on the front page of our site.
We are going to look for ghosts, and Scott is going to run.
I'm going to run like a little girl.
I would love to see that. I would love to hear that being recorded. As Scott going like, oh my gosh, what's that? Oh no! And then hearing his footsteps, and then the door slamming, and the car speeding away. That'd be great.
It's going to be crazy, and it is going to be crazy. But
we're really looking forward to that. So
who's on next week? Does anybody know off top?
I don't have a computer, Scott.
Oh, that's right. It's upstairs. I brought it for you, and it's upstairs.
I'm sorry.
And
I should have just.
I didn't even. Well, you got here a little late.
I know. I did.
That's okay. It's all right. Up next week, we've got Randy Harrigan from the UFO store. Real nice guy. And I want to tell you for 2007 some interesting developments. We just updated that site, but I do want to say that we do have the honor of not only having Dr. Cyril Wecht with us, but we also have the honor of having Dr. Raymond Moody come on the show to talk about life after death.
Oh, he's like the preeminent expert of near-death experiences.
He is. He's the godfather of NDEs. And he's going to be on our show. Once again, though, those codes are learnrv.com. Type in 362RV4. That's 362RV4 at learnrv.com. Receive a $25 World of the Unexplained discount there and get the $299 set for $25 off. Remember, this is a $4,500 value brought to you exclusively by World of the Unexplained.
Wotu's hitting hard.
That's right. And we've got a Wotu mashed potato recipe I'm going to give you. It's called our Monster Mash. I'll give it next week. It's good stuff, man. It's good. We eat it. We eat it all the time. Yeah, man, it's good.
Do you fuel it with mental energy?
I do it with my RV stuff. No, okay. So anyway, RV it, Chuck, and tell us what we're going to be eating. Okay. All right. Guys, we're out of time here. Thanks for listening. I'm Jay Scott, your only JD DJ on the Planet Paranormal Radio Network.
I'm Trent Lackey. We're coming to you from Kernersville, North Carolina, a small town where we talk about big things.
We out!